I raised the champagne glass with a steady hand, even though I wanted to shatter it against his skull. Around us, 200 guests applauded, their faces blurred by candlelight and my carefully maintained smile. My best friend stood beside me at the altar, my best man, my brother in everything but blood, grinning that infectious grin that had charmed everyone in this room. That had charmed me for 23 years. He didn't know I'd found the messages. He didn't know about the DNA test in my jacket pocket. He didn't know that the beautiful bride, beaming at him in her white dress, had been crying in my arms just 6 hours ago, begging me not to do this, not tonight, not here. But I did know. And I was going to give the toast of a lifetime. "To Marcus and Jennifer," I said, my voice carrying across the ballroom. "May you get exactly what you deserve." The crowd erupted. They had no idea. "Let me take you back to where this really began. My name is Julian Cross, and I met Marcus Webb on the first day of 6th grade at Riverside Middle School in Portland, Oregon. I was the new kid, again, courtesy of my father's job as a logistics consultant that dragged our family across state lines every 2 years like clockwork. I'd learned to be invisible by then, to slip into classrooms and disappear into the back row, to eat lunch with a book as my only companion. Marcus made invisibility impossible. He spotted me the moment I walked into Mr. Patterson's homeroom, and before I could claim my sanctuary in the back, he'd grabbed the desk next to mine. "You're the new kid," he announced, not bothering with the whispered tones everyone else used. "I'm Marcus. You any good at basketball?" "Not really," I admitted. "Perfect. Me neither. Want to suck at it together during lunch?" I couldn't help but laugh. There was something magnetic about him, a confidence that didn't feel like arrogance, a warmth that made you want to orbit closer. His smile was crooked, his hair perpetually messy, and he had this habit of gesturing wildly when he talked, like he was conducting an invisible orchestra. We became inseparable that day. What I didn't realize then, what I wouldn't understand until much later, was that Marcus had a gift. He could read people the way some kids could read music. He knew exactly what you needed to hear, exactly how to make you feel seen, understood, valued. It wasn't manipulation, not in the beginning. It was just who he was, effortlessly charismatic, genuinely interested, impossibly likable. And I needed that desperately. My childhood had been a parade of temporary connections, friendships that lasted just long enough to hurt when they ended. My parents were good people, but emotionally distant, consumed by their own professional ambitions. Dad worked 70-hour weeks. Mum channeled her loneliness into charity work and book clubs. I was fed, clothed, educated, and profoundly alone. Marcus filled that void. His family was different, chaotic, loud, overflowing with warmth. His mother, Patricia, taught 3rd grade and baked cookies that actually tasted like love. His father, Robert, coached Little League and told terrible jokes with such commitment that you laughed despite yourself. His younger sister, Amy, was a pest in the way that younger siblings are, but even her pestering felt like affection. They absorbed me into their orbit. Within a month, I was having dinner at their house 3 nights a week. Within 3 months, I had my own place at their table, my own mug in their cabinet. Patricia started buying the cereal I liked. Robert included me in his fantasy football league. Amy started annoying me with the same casual cruelty she showed Marcus. I belonged. For the first time in my life, I had roots. And the taproot was Marcus. We weren't just friends, we were brothers in the way that transcends biology, forged in shared experiences, inside jokes, late-night conversations about everything and nothing. We learned to drive in his dad's pickup truck, terrorizing empty parking lots. We got drunk for the first time on stolen beer in his basement, and he held my hair while I puked. I was there when he got his heart broken by Jessica Martinez in 9th grade, and he was there when my grandmother, the only relative who'd ever really seen me, died during my sophomore year. When my parents announced another move at the end of 10th grade, I broke down in a way I never had before. I couldn't lose this. I couldn't lose him. I still remember the night I told Marcus. We were in his room, supposedly studying for chemistry, but actually debating whether time travel could ever be real. I just blurted it out. "We're moving to Denver." The silence that followed felt like drowning. Then Marcus said, "No." "What?" "No," he repeated, sitting up straighter. "You're not leaving. Not this time." "Marcus, I don't have a choice." "You have a choice. You stay here. With us." The conversation that followed was intense, desperate, hopeful. Marcus suggested I could live with them. His parents would agree, he was certain. It seemed impossible, like a fantasy, but Marcus made it real. He approached his parents that night. I'll never forget Patricia's face when she called my house the next day, asking my parents to come over for a discussion. The conversation was awkward, filled with adult concerns about propriety and legal guardianship, and whether this was really appropriate. Marcus's parents said yes anyway. My parents, I think, were relieved. They agreed with surprising ease, working out an arrangement where I'd live with the Webbs during the school year and visit Denver during summers and holidays. They'd cover expenses, of course, but the day-to-day parenting would fall to Patricia and Robert. I had been chosen, kept, saved. I loved Marcus for that in a way that went beyond friendship. He had fought for me when my own parents hadn't. He had made me matter. That debt would shape everything that came after. High school with Marcus was the best years of my young life. We were inseparable. Same classes when possible, same lunch table, same weekend plans. We weren't the most popular kids, but we weren't outcasts either. We existed in that comfortable middle tier, known and generally liked. Marcus had a girlfriend junior year, Stephanie Chen, captain of the debate team, and I dated her best friend Rachel, more out of convenience than passion. We double-dated, went to prom as a group, spent summer nights at the lake with a rotating cast of friends. But our real relationship was with each other. We talked about everything, our fears, our dreams, our insecurities. Marcus wanted to be a sports agent, representing athletes and negotiating massive contracts. I wanted to write novels, maybe, or journalism, something that mattered. We made plans for college, determined to stay together to continue our brotherhood. We both got into the University of Oregon. Marcus on a partial academic scholarship, me on a combination of my parents' money and financial aid. We roomed together freshman year in a cramped dorm that smelled like mold and ambition. We joined the same fraternity sophomore year, not because we were particularly interested in Greek life, but because Marcus thought it would be good for networking, and I trusted his judgment. He was right. Marcus thrived in social environments, and his charisma opened doors for both of us. By junior year, he was vice president of our fraternity. I was the social chair, organizing events I didn't particularly enjoy, but did because Marcus needed me to. This was our dynamic. Marcus led, I followed. Marcus dreamed big. I made those dreams practical. Marcus charmed people. I ensured follow-through. We complemented each other perfectly, or so I thought. It was during our senior year that Marcus met Jennifer Hayes. She walked into our business ethics class on the first day, late, flustered, beautiful in an understated way. She had auburn hair that caught the light, green eyes that seemed to actually see people, and a quiet confidence that didn't demand attention, but earned it anyway. Marcus was smitten immediately. "Did you see her?" he whispered to me, not taking his eyes off Jennifer as she settled into a seat 2 rows ahead. "Hard to miss." I said. "I'm going to marry that girl." I laughed. Marcus said things like that, grand pronouncements that felt half serious, half joke. But there was something different in his voice that day, a certainty. He approached her after class, turning on the full force of his charm. I watched from a distance as she smiled politely, clearly intrigued but not overwhelmed. That should have been my first clue. Jennifer was different from the girls Marcus usually dated. She wasn't impressed by smooth lines or easy confidence. She required substance. Marcus rose to the challenge. He pursued her with a focus I'd rarely seen from him. He actually attended every business ethics class, unheard of for Marcus, who usually relied on my notes and charm to get by. He engaged in the discussions, crafted thoughtful responses, stayed after class to continue conversations with Jennifer about corporate responsibility and moral frameworks. It worked. They had their first date 2 weeks later, and I met Jennifer properly a week after that. Marcus brought her to our apartment. We'd moved off campus junior year into a modest 2-bedroom we could barely afford. He was nervous in a way I'd never seen him, actually tidying up his disaster of a room, making sure we had good beer in the fridge, asking me to please, for the love of God, not tell any embarrassing stories. "I really like this one, Jules," he said, using the nickname only he and his family used. "Like, really like her." "I can tell." "So you'll be cool? Make a good impression?" "When am I not cool?" He grinned, relieved. "Never. That's why you're my brother." Jennifer arrived right on time, carrying a bottle of wine and wearing jeans and a simple green sweater. She shook my hand with a firm grip and met my eyes directly. None of the giggling uncertainty that usually accompanied Marcus's girlfriends. "Julian," she said, "I've heard a lot about you." "All lies," I said automatically. She smiled. "Marcus said you'd say that." We ordered pizza and spent the evening on our ratty couches, talking about everything. Jennifer was studying accounting with a minor in environmental science, an unusual combination. She explained by saying she wanted to help green companies navigate complex financial landscapes. She was practical and idealistic simultaneously, grounded yet ambitious. She asked thoughtful questions about my journalism major, actually listening to my answers instead of just waiting for her turn to talk. She laughed at Marcus's jokes, but also called him out when he exaggerated stories. She was warm without being effusive, intelligent without being pretentious. I liked her immediately. More importantly, I saw what Marcus saw. This woman was different. She was real in a way that cut through all the social performance that dominated our college experience. She didn't seem to need anything from Marcus except his genuine self. And Marcus, miraculously, gave it to her. I watched their relationship develop over the following months with genuine happiness. Marcus became a better version of himself around Jennifer, more thoughtful, more grounded, more honest. She challenged him in ways no one else did, refusing to accept the easy charm and demanding the substance beneath. They became that couple everyone roots for, complementary, balanced, genuinely happy. And they always included me. Movie nights became a trio, dinners out seated 3, weekend trips included Julian. Jennifer never made me feel like a third wheel. If anything, she seemed to understand that Marcus and I were a package deal, and she slipped into our dynamic without disrupting it. The 3 of us graduated together in June 2008. Terrible timing, as it turned out. The economy was beginning its collapse and the job market was a nightmare. Marcus had dreams of joining a major sports agency, but those firms weren't hiring. Jennifer had job offers from accounting firms, but in Phoenix, not Oregon. I had a few freelance writing gigs, but nothing resembling a career. We were all stuck, uncertain, scared. That's when Marcus made the proposal that would define the next decade of our lives. "Let's start something," he said one night, the 3 of us sitting on the apartment balcony, drinking cheap beer and contemplating our uncertain futures. The three of us. A business. What kind of business? Jennifer asked. I don't know exactly, but I know talent management. Jules knows communication and storytelling. You know numbers and organization. We could consult for small businesses, athletes, whoever needs help building their brand and managing their money. It was ambitious, probably stupid, definitely risky. I'm in, I said immediately. Because wherever Marcus went, I followed. Jennifer took longer, her practical nature warring with her adventurous spirit. But eventually she smiled and raised her beer. What the hell, let's do it. We started Web and Cross Consulting. Marcus insisted his name go first, and I didn't care that summer. We pooled our meager resources, created a website, networked aggressively, and somehow, miraculously, landed our first client, a minor league baseball player who needed help negotiating an endorsement deal. We had no idea what we were doing, but we figured it out together. The first 5 years of Web and Cross were chaos. We worked out of Marcus's parents' basement, then a shared office space, then finally a small office we could barely afford in downtown Portland. Money was constantly tight. We took any client who would have, us small business owners needing marketing help, local athletes needing contract advice, musicians trying to build their brands. Marcus was the face of the company, the one who charmed clients and closed deals. Jennifer managed the finances and operations with ruthless efficiency. I created the content, websites, press releases, social media strategies, whatever was needed. We worked 80-hour weeks. We fought about strategy, money, direction. We celebrated tiny victories and mourned stupid mistakes. We grew slowly, steadily, learning as we went. And we grew closer. Marcus and Jennifer got engaged in 2010, married in 2011, in a small ceremony at his parents' house. I was the best man, obviously, and I gave a toast about brotherhood and finding family where you least expect it. Patricia cried. Robert clapped me on the back so hard I nearly spilled my champagne. I dated sporadically during those years, nothing serious, nothing that lasted. Work consumed most of my energy, and the rest went to maintaining my role in Marcus and Jennifer's life. I was Uncle Julian to the family they'd eventually have, the constant third point in their triangle, the one who made their duo a trio. I didn't mind. This was my family. This was my place. In 2013, we had our breakthrough. A former college football player who'd made it to the NFL, Trevor Morrison, a defensive end for the Seattle Seahawks, hired us to manage his brand after hearing about our work from a former minor league client. It was our first major contract, the kind that could legitimize our little company. Marcus handled the negotiation. Jennifer structured the financials. I crafted Trevor's public image, managing his social media, coordinating charitable appearances, building his brand beyond football. It worked. Trevor's endorsement deals tripled, his public profile soared, and he told his teammates about us. Suddenly, Web and Cross Consulting was the hidden gem agency that players whispered about. We weren't CAA or Wasserman, but we were scrappy, personal, and effective. We cared about our clients in a way the big agencies couldn't afford to. The money started flowing. We hired our first employees, Sarah, a sharp marketing coordinator, and David, a numbers guy who could crunch contract details. We moved into a real office with actual furniture and a conference room. We drew actual salaries instead of scraping by on whatever was left after expenses. Marcus bought a house. Jennifer talked about starting a family. I finally moved out of my cramped apartment into a nice condo downtown. We'd made it. By 2016, Web and Cross represented 15 professional athletes across various sports, a dozen small businesses, and 3 musicians with legitimate followings. Our annual revenue crossed $2 million. We were successful by any reasonable measure. And I was happy, genuinely, completely happy. Marcus was my best friend, my brother, my business partner. Jennifer was the sister I'd never had. the voice of reason in our chaotic company, the person who remembered birthdays and asked about my dating life and made sure I wasn't working myself to death. I trusted them absolutely. I trusted them with my money, my career, my future. I trusted them with everything. That trust would destroy me. The first crack appeared in January 2017, so small I almost missed it. We were in our office, a modest suite in a converted warehouse that we'd made into something approaching professional, reviewing quarterly finances. Jennifer was walking Marcus and me through the numbers, her usual precise delivery interrupted by occasional yawns. "You okay?" I asked. "Fine, just tired. Think I'm fighting off something." Marcus put his hand on her shoulder, concerned. "Maybe you should head home early." "I'm fine," she insisted, but her smile seemed strained. I thought nothing of it. People get tired, people get sick. It happens, but it kept happening. Over the next few weeks, Jennifer seemed perpetually exhausted. She'd leave meetings early, claiming headaches. She'd work from home more frequently. Her usual sharp attention to detail seemed to slip. Small things like forgetting to file paperwork on time or mixing up client names. "Is Jennifer okay?" I asked Marcus one evening, after she'd left the office at 3 p.m., claiming a migraine. He hesitated, an unusual break in his typical easy confidence. "She's been stressed, we both have. Growth is good, but it's also a lot." "Anything I can do?" "Just keep being you, Jules. Keep the ship running smooth." It was a deflection, but I accepted it. If there was something wrong, Marcus would tell me. We told each other everything, or so I believed. In March, Jennifer called out sick for an entire week. Marcus said she had the flu, that it was hitting her hard, that she just needed rest. When she returned, she looked pale, almost fragile, in a way I'd never associated with Jennifer. "You sure you're ready to be back?" I asked gently. "I'm fine," she said, sharper than necessary. Then softer. "Sorry, I'm fine, just ready to get back to normal." But normal didn't return. Jennifer became increasingly withdrawn. The easy warmth that had always characterized her interactions became more formal, more distant. She stopped joining Marcus and me for our weekly lunches. She declined invitations to grab drinks after work. She was present but absent, there but not there. I mentioned it to Marcus in April, choosing my words carefully. "Is everything okay with Jennifer? She seems off." "She's fine," Marcus said quickly. Too quickly. "Just dealing with some personal stuff, nothing to worry about." "If there's anything I can do..." "There's not, it's personal. She'll be okay." The conversation felt like a door closing. Marcus had never shut me out before, had never drawn boundaries around information. We'd always been an open book with each other, but I respected his privacy. If he said it was personal, it was personal. In May, Jennifer announced she was taking a 2-week vacation, alone. She needed time to think, to reset, to figure some things out. Marcus seemed to support the decision, though I could see the worry in his eyes. While she was gone, Marcus threw himself into work with manic energy. He was signing new clients, pushing for expansion, talking about opening a second office. It felt less like ambition and more like distraction. "You seem stressed," I observed one evening as we reviewed a contract. "I'm fine." "Marcus," I said, "I'm fine, Julian." He snapped, then immediately looked apologetic. Sorry, I'm just..." "Yeah, I'm stressed, but it'll be okay. It's all going to be okay." I wanted to push, to demand the truth, to exercise my right as his best friend to know what was happening. But I also knew Marcus. When he was ready to talk, he'd talk. Pushing would only make him retreat further. Jennifer came back from her vacation, looking more settled, more like herself. The tension eased slightly. I convinced myself that whatever crisis they'd been navigating was over. I was wrong. In June, I noticed Marcus taking phone calls in his car, stepping out of meetings for hushed conversations, texting constantly with a furtiveness I'd never seen from him. When I asked about it, he said it was a potential major client, someone who required discretion, nothing to worry about. The explanation felt thin, but I accepted it. Then came July 15th, 2017, the day I should have started asking harder questions but didn't. I arrived at the office early, around 7 a.m, to finish a proposal that was due that afternoon. Marcus's car was already in the parking lot, which was unusual. He was many things, but an early riser wasn't one of them. I found him in his office, door closed, speaking on the phone in low, urgent tones. I couldn't make out the words, but the emotion was clear. Stress, maybe fear, definitely intensity. I retreated to my office and tried to focus on work. An hour later, Marcus emerged, looking haggard. "Jules, hey, didn't know you were in." "Early start, you okay?" "Yeah, no, I don't know." He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture of pure frustration. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "If you knew something that would hurt someone you love, but they needed to know it, would you tell them?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. "I think," I said carefully, "that honesty is always better than a comfortable lie, even when it hurts." He nodded slowly, looking like he was carrying the weight of the world. Yeah, you're probably right." "What's going on, Marcus?" "I can't. Not yet. Soon. I promise I'll explain everything soon." He didn't explain. Not then, not in the weeks that followed. But things seemed to stabilize again. Jennifer seemed happier. Marcus seemed lighter. Whatever storm they'd been weathering had apparently passed. I focused on work, on our growing roster of clients, on the success we were building together. And I missed every single warning sign that my entire life was a carefully constructed lie. The revelation came on a Tuesday in October 2018 in the most mundane way possible. I was at Jennifer's house, a beautiful craftsman they'd bought 2 years earlier, helping her set up a new computer system. Marcus was in Los Angeles meeting with a potential client, and Jennifer had asked if I could stop by during my lunch break to help with some tech issues. We'd been friends for a decade by then. I had keys to their house. They had keys to my condo. This was normal, comfortable, family. Jennifer was in the kitchen making coffee while I worked in the home office, untangling cables and cursing whoever had set up their previous system. Her laptop was open on the desk, password protected but not closed, the screensaver cycling through photos of her and Marcus from their various trips and adventures. I wasn't snooping. I want to be clear about that. I wasn't looking for anything. But when I accidentally bumped the mouse, the screensaver disappeared, revealing her email inbox, and the subject line at the top, unread, bolded, impossible to miss. DNA results, confirmation for patient Hayes Webb, file.jh2947. My hand froze on the mouse. DNA results. Why would Jennifer need DNA results? It wasn't my business. I should have looked away, should have called out to Jennifer, should have respected her privacy, but something in my gut twisted, some instinct I couldn't name, and before I could second-guess myself, I clicked. The email was from a private medical laboratory. The message was brief, professional, devastating. Dear Ms. Hayes Webb, per your request, please find attached the DNA paternity test results for patient file JH2947. As discussed during your consultation, these results are confidential and will not be shared with any third party without your written consent. Should you have any questions or need to discuss these results, please don't hesitate to contact our counseling services. There was an attachment, a PDF. I knew I shouldn't open it. Every moral fiber in my body screamed at me to close the laptop, to walk away, to pretend I'd seen nothing. I opened it anyway. The document was dense with medical terminology and legal disclaimers, but the relevant section was highlighted, impossible to misunderstand. Conclusion. The alleged father, Marcus Webb, is excluded as the biological father of the tested child. The probability of paternity is 0%. The words swam before my eyes. I read them again, then again. Marcus wasn't the father, but that meant Jennifer had been pregnant. Jennifer had had a baby. Jennifer had Julian. I jumped, slamming the laptop shut with guilty force. Jennifer stood in the doorway holding 2 mugs of coffee, her face pale. "I'm sorry," I blurted. "I wasn't—" "The screen was up and I saw the subject line and I shouldn't have. I'm so sorry." "Stop." Her voice was quiet, controlled, but I could hear the tremor beneath. "Just stop." She set the mugs down carefully, like she was afraid her hands might betray her. Then she closed the office door and leaned against it, eyes closed. "How much did you see?" she asked. "Enough." She nodded, still not looking at me. "Does Marcus know you know?" "I don't. Jennifer, I don't even know what I know. What is this? Whose baby? When? What?" "I had an abortion." The words came out flat, emotionless. 8 months ago, I was pregnant. And it wasn't Marcus's, and I terminated the pregnancy. The room tilted. "You were pregnant." "For about 8 weeks before I—" "Yes." "With someone else's baby?" "Yes." "While married to my best friend?" "Yes." Finally, she opened her eyes, and the pain in them was so raw, I had to look away. "I know what you're thinking." "I don't think you do." "You're thinking I'm a monster." "That I betrayed Marcus, that I destroyed our marriage, that I'm the worst kind of person." "Actually," I said, my voice colder than I had ever heard it, "I'm thinking about how you've been lying to Marcus for 8 months. I'm thinking about how I've been watching him worry about you, support you, love you, while you've been carrying this secret. I'm thinking about how many times I could have helped if you'd just trusted me with the truth. I couldn't tell anyone." Her voice cracked. "I couldn't tell Marcus because it would destroy him. I couldn't tell you because you'd have to tell Marcus and it would destroy him. I couldn't tell anyone because there was no version of this that didn't burn everything down." "So you got an abortion and just—" "What? Hoped it would go away?" "I did what I thought was right." She was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. "I made a mistake. One horrible, stupid mistake that I will regret for the rest of my life. And I chose to end the pregnancy rather than bring a child into that mess and destroy my marriage with proof of my betrayal." I should have felt sympathy. On some level, I understood the impossible position she'd been in. But all I could feel was rage on Marcus's behalf. "Who?" I asked. "What? Who was it? Who did you sleep with?" She shook her head. "It doesn't matter." "The hell it doesn't. Marcus deserves to know." "Marcus doesn't know any of this, and he can't know. Julian, please." She grabbed my arm, desperate. "Please don't tell him. It would destroy him. It would destroy us. It would destroy everything we've built." "You should have thought about that before you cheated." "I know. Don't you think I know that?" She was sobbing now, barely coherent. "I live with this every single day. The guilt is eating me alive. But telling Marcus won't change what happened. It'll just hurt him for no reason." "No reason? Jesus, Jennifer, he has a right to know that his wife had a moment of weakness. When she was drunk and scared and made a horrible decision that she immediately regretted." Her eyes pleaded with me. "I'm not asking you to approve. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you, as someone who claims to love Marcus, to consider whether telling him this will actually help him or just make you feel righteous." It was a low blow, and we both knew it. "I need to think," I said, pulling away from her. "I need to process this." "Julian," I'm not going to tell him today, but I can't promise anything beyond that. I need time. I left without finishing the computer setup, without drinking the coffee, without looking back at Jennifer's broken expression. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing through everything I thought I knew about Marcus and Jennifer's relationship. The weird distance earlier this year suddenly made sense. The stress, the sickness, the vacation. She'd been dealing with an unwanted pregnancy from an affair. How could I not tell? Marcus? But how could I tell him? If I told him, it would destroy their marriage. It would destroy our business partnership. It would destroy the family structure I'd built my entire adult life around. And for what? To punish Jennifer for a mistake she'd already punished herself for? But if I didn't tell him, I was complicit in the lie. I was choosing Jennifer's comfort over Marcus's right to know the truth about his own marriage. I agonized over the decision for 3 days. Jennifer called me repeatedly. I didn't answer. Marcus texted asking if I was okay, if something had happened with Jennifer. I made excuses about being busy with a project. On the third night, I decided I had to tell him. He deserved the truth, regardless of the consequences. Our friendship was built on honesty, and I couldn't betray that foundation. I called Marcus and asked him to meet me for a drink. He showed up at our usual bar looking concerned. "What's going on, Jules? You've been weird all week." I ordered a whiskey, then another, liquid courage for the bomb I was about to drop. "I need to tell you something," I began. "And you're going to hate me for it, but you need to know." His face went pale. "Is this about Jennifer?" "How did you—" "I know." He said it quietly, with such resignation that it took me a moment to process. "You know? You know what exactly?" "I know she cheated on me. I know she got pregnant. I know she had an abortion." He took a long drink of his beer. "I've known since June." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "You've known for 4 months?" She told me. She broke down one night and confessed everything. The affair, the pregnancy, the abortion, all of it. "And you, what, forgave her?" "I'm working on it." He wouldn't meet my eyes. "It's not that simple, Jules. Marriage isn't that simple." "She lied to you for months." "I know." "She cheated on you." "I know." He slammed his beer down, drawing looks from other patrons. More, quietly, "I know, believe me, I know, but I also know that she made a mistake, that she's genuinely sorry, that she ended the pregnancy specifically because she wanted to save our marriage. And I have to decide whether I can forgive that." "Can you?" "I don't know yet." He finally looked at me, and the pain in his eyes was gutting. "I love her, Jules. I really love her. And this isn't some pattern of behavior. It was one time, one mistake. She's been perfect for 8 years, and then one night, she screwed up. One night that resulted in a pregnancy. A pregnancy she ended because she chose me." His voice was pleading now, like he needed me to understand, to approve. "She chose our marriage over that baby. That has to count for something." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to shake him, to demand he have more self-respect, to insist he leave her immediately. But another part understood the complicated calculus of long-term relationships, the way love can coexist with betrayal, the impossibility of untangling years of shared history from one terrible decision. "I just think," I said carefully, "that you deserve better than someone who could lie to you for 8 months. Maybe, but I also know I'm not perfect. I know I've taken her for granted sometimes, worked too much, prioritized the business over our marriage. I'm not excusing what she did, but I'm also not pretending I'm blameless in the state of our relationship." "Marcus, that's not, you didn't make her cheat." "No, but I maybe created the conditions where she felt lonely enough to make that choice." He signaled the bartender for another beer. "Look, I appreciate you being in my corner, I do, but this is my marriage, my decision, and I've decided to try to work through this with her. I wanted to argue more, but I could see the determination in his eyes. He'd made his choice. Okay, I said finally. If that's what you want, I'll support you, but you need to know I'm watching. If she hurts you again, I won't be this understanding. He smiled weakly. Deal. We finished our drinks talking about safer topics, work, sports, the weather. But something had shifted between us. For the first time in our 15-year friendship, there was a secret I couldn't share, a judgment I had to swallow, a distance I couldn't bridge. I'd chosen to support Marcus's decision to forgive Jennifer. But I never said I forgave her. The next year was strange. On the surface, everything returned to normal. Jennifer and Marcus went to couples therapy. She seemed genuinely committed to rebuilding trust, being more present, working on their marriage. Marcus seemed lighter, like confessing the betrayal and choosing forgiveness had released some pressure valve, and I played my role. Supportive friend, neutral business partner, keeper of secrets, but something had changed in how I saw them. Jennifer was no longer the sister figure I'd trusted implicitly. She was someone capable of catastrophic deception, and Marcus was no longer the infallible friend I'd followed blindly. He was someone who could choose comfort over self-respect. I judged them both, silently, constantly. Still, Webb & Cross continued to thrive. We signed bigger clients, expanded our roster, hired more staff. By late 2019, we were approaching $5 million in annual revenue. We were legitimate, successful, stable. Then COVID hit. The pandemic devastated our business almost overnight. Athletes couldn't play. Endorsement deals dried up. Small business clients went bankrupt. Our revenue dropped by 60% in 3 months. We had to lay off most of our staff. We cut our own salaries to skeleton levels. We worked around the clock trying to keep our remaining clients happy and find new revenue streams. It was brutal, terrifying, exhausting, but it also brought us back together. The crisis forced us into a bunker mentality, the three of us against the world, fighting to save what we'd built. Late nights in the office became early mornings. Strategy sessions lasted until dawn. We ate takeout at our desks and slept on office couches. And slowly, painfully, we stabilized. We pivoted to virtual events, digital marketing, online brand building. We found new clients who needed exactly those services. By late 2020, we were growing again, leaner but stronger. Through all of it, I watched Marcus and Jennifer's marriage seemingly heal. They seemed happy again, connected, present with each other. Whatever wound the affair had opened appeared to be closing. I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe forgiveness was possible, that people could change, that one mistake didn't have to define everything. I should have known better. In January 2021, Jennifer announced she was pregnant. Marcus was elated. They'd been trying for a while, apparently part of their reconciliation process. This would be their fresh start, their proof that they'd survived and thrived. I congratulated them, smiled at the right moments, asked the expected questions about due dates and names and nursery colours. But privately, I couldn't help but wonder, was Marcus certain this baby was his? Had they done another paternity test? Or was he just trusting that Jennifer had learned her lesson? I never asked. It wasn't my place. Their daughter, Emma, was born in September 2021. She was beautiful. Marcus's eyes, Jennifer's smile, a perfect combination of them both. Marcus became a devoted father almost instantly, the kind of dad who documented every moment and bored everyone with baby photos. Jennifer glowed with a contentment I'd never seen from her, like motherhood had filled some void she'd been carrying. And I became Uncle Julian, the role I'd always expected to play. I held Emma, changed diapers, babysat when Marcus and Jennifer needed date nights. I loved that little girl from the moment I met her. But I also couldn't stop wondering whose daughter she really was. The thought festered, an unspoken poison. I'd see Emma's face and look for traces of Marcus, for confirmation that she was his. I'd watch Jennifer with her and wonder if she ever thought about the other baby, the one she'd terminated, the one that had nearly destroyed everything. These thoughts made me feel monstrous, but I couldn't stop them. Then came the night that shattered every illusion I'd clung to. It was March 2022. Marcus and Jennifer were celebrating their 11th anniversary with a trip to wine country, leaving Emma with Jennifer's parents. They'd invited me to join them for a celebratory dinner before they left, a tradition we'd maintained since their wedding. We met at a nice restaurant downtown, dressed up, ready to toast another year of their marriage. The conversation was easy, familiar, full of the comfortable warmth that came from a decade of shared history. Halfway through dinner, Marcus excused himself to take a call from a client. It was just Jennifer and me at the table, an increasingly rare occurrence as their family had grown. "Thank you," Jennifer said quietly. "For what?" "For not telling him. Back when you found out. You could have destroyed everything and you chose not to." I shifted uncomfortably. "I told him because I thought he deserved the truth. Turns out he already knew." "But you were ready to tell him even not knowing that. Even knowing it would hurt him. Because you thought it was right." She reached across the table, putting a hand on mine. "That's why you're his best friend." "Why, you're our best friend." "You always put Marcus first." There was something in her tone that made my stomach clench. "Jennifer, I need to tell you something." She pulled her hand back, twisting her napkin nervously. "Something I should have told you back then but couldn't." Ice flooded my veins. "What?" "The affair, the baby. It was—" She stopped abruptly as Marcus returned to the table, all smiles. "Sorry about that, client." Panic over nothing. Where were we? Jennifer's expression shifted instantly, smoothing into cheerful normality. "Just discussing how old we're getting. 11 years. Marcus raised his glass. "To 11 more. And to Jules, who's been with us for every one of them." We clinked glasses and drank, but I barely tasted the wine. What had Jennifer been about to tell me? What couldn't she say in front of Marcus? I tried to catch her eye for the rest of dinner, to signal that we needed to finish that conversation. But she avoided my gaze, keeping her attention firmly on Marcus, laughing at his stories, playing the role of happy wife with practiced ease. After dinner, they headed off on their trip. I went home to my condo, poured myself a substantial whiskey, and stared at the city lights, trying to figure out what Jennifer had been about to confess. The affair was with someone I knew. That had to be it. Someone in our circle. Someone Marcus knew, which was why she couldn't say it in front of him. But who? I mentally ran through our friends, our clients, everyone in our orbit. Who would Jennifer have cheated with? Who had been around in early 2017 when she would have gotten pregnant? The answer hit me like a freight train. David, our former finance guy who'd joined Webb & Cross in 2016. David, who'd left the company abruptly in mid-2017 for personal reasons. David, who Jennifer had worked closely with on all the accounting matters. David, who'd been good-looking in a quiet way, smart, thoughtful, exactly the kind of person Jennifer might have connected with during a vulnerable moment. It made too much sense. I pulled up David's LinkedIn profile, something I hadn't looked at in years. His current job listed him in Seattle, working for a tech startup. Far away. Conveniently far away. I considered reaching out to him, demanding answers. But what would I say? "Hey, did you knock up my business partner's wife 5 years ago?" Instead, I did nothing. I sat with the knowledge, let it rot inside me, poisoned my thoughts. For weeks after, I found myself watching Jennifer differently, looking for signs of residual feelings for David, for guilt, for anything that would confirm my theory. I found nothing. She seemed genuinely happy with Marcus, genuinely committed to their family, genuinely content. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe the affair had been with someone else entirely, someone random she'd never see again. Maybe it didn't matter who it was, but the question gnawed at me until the day I checked our company email and saw a message from David. The email was addressed to Marcus and me, sent to our general business account. Marcus and Julian. I hope this message finds you both well. I've been following Webb & Cross's success over the years, and I'm genuinely impressed with how far you've taken the company. I'm reaching out because I'm returning to Portland next month for family reasons, and I'd love to reconnect, perhaps grab drinks and catch up on old times. Let me know if you're available. Best. David Reeves. I stared at the email for a solid 5 minutes, my heart pounding. David was coming back to Portland. David wanted to meet. Did he know I suspected? Was this some kind of confession tour? Or was it exactly what it appeared to be, a former colleague wanting to reconnect? Marcus responded enthusiastically before I could form a coherent thought. Great to hear from you. Absolutely, let's grab drinks. How's the 15th work? I forced myself to respond normally. Sounds good. Looking forward to catching up. The 2 weeks until the meeting were torture. I couldn't tell Marcus about my suspicions without proof. I couldn't confront Jennifer without knowing for certain. I could only wait and hope that maybe, finally, I'd get answers. We met at the same bar where Marcus had told me he knew about Jennifer's affair. The irony wasn't lost on me. David looked good. Older, more successful. The kind of polish that comes from working in tech. He greeted us warmly, ordered a craft beer, asked the usual questions about business and life. For the first hour, it was genuinely pleasant. David shared stories about Seattle, about his startup, about the chaos of the tech industry. Marcus talked about Emma, about fatherhood, about the challenges and joys of running a business during a pandemic. I mostly listened, watching David for any sign of discomfort when Marcus mentioned Jennifer or Emma. I saw nothing. Then Marcus excused himself to the bathroom, leaving David and me alone. The silence that followed was weighted. So, David said finally, I assume you figured it out. My blood went cold. Figured what out? He gave me a look that said he knew I was playing dumb. Come on, Julian, you're smarter than that. You must have pieced it together by now. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. He took a long drink of his beer. I slept with Jennifer in March 2017. She got pregnant. She had an abortion. I left the company because staying would have been too complicated. Hearing it confirmed, stated so baldly, felt like being gutted. Does Marcus know it was you? God, no. Jennifer swore she'd never tell him who it was, and I certainly wasn't going to volunteer that information. So why are you here? Why reach out now? Because I'm dying, he said it calmly, matter-of-factly. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. I've got maybe 6 months, probably less. The world tilted. David, I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm just tying up loose ends, making peace with my mistakes, and that, what happened with Jennifer, is one of my biggest regrets. You should regret it. You nearly destroyed my best friend's marriage. I know. Believe me, I know. He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture of exhaustion. We were both drunk. She was lonely. I was attracted to her and too weak to say no. It was one night, one stupid decision that spiraled into a nightmare. Did you love her? No, I barely knew her as a person beyond work. That's what made it so pointless. It wasn't some grand romance. It was just alcohol and proximity and poor judgment. Marcus was heading back from the bathroom. David leaned in quickly. Please don't tell him it was me. There's no point now. I'll be dead soon, and it'll just hurt him to know it was someone he trusted. I didn't have time to respond before Marcus returned, cheerful and oblivious. The rest of the evening was surreal. I made small talk, laughed at appropriate moments, played my role, but internally I was screaming. David was dying. The man who'd impregnated my best friend's wife was dying, and he wanted to be absolved without facing consequences. After we parted ways, Marcus turned to me with a smile. That was nice. Good to see David doing well. Yeah, I managed. Really nice. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about David's confession, about the casualness with which he'd described destroying a marriage, about his request for continued secrecy. And I thought about Jennifer, who'd kept this secret for 5 years now, who'd looked me in the eye and refused to tell me who the father was, protecting David even after their affair had ended. Why? Unless it hadn't ended. The thought was insane, but once it lodged in my brain, I couldn't dislodge it. What if the affair was ongoing? What if Jennifer had maintained contact with David all these years? What if Emma— No, I couldn't let myself go there. Emma was Marcus's daughter. She had to be. But what if she wasn't? The question haunted me for days. I found myself staring at Emma during babysitting sessions, looking for resemblances to David. Did her nose look like his? Her expressions? I was losing my mind. Finally, I did something I knew was wrong, but couldn't stop myself from doing. I stole Emma's pacifier. I took it during a babysitting session, slipping it into my pocket while changing her diaper. Then I took it to a private DNA testing service, along with a sample of my own DNA, claiming I needed to verify paternity for a complicated family situation. The premise was flimsy, but I paid extra for discretion and speed. The results came back in a week. Emma was not genetically related to me, which was expected, but the report included detailed genetic markers, the kind that could be compared to other samples. I needed to get Marcus's DNA. This was insane. This was a massive violation of privacy and trust. This was everything I'd criticized Jennifer for: deception, secrecy, betrayal. But I had to know. I invited Marcus for drinks and, when he went to the bathroom, swabbed the inside of his beer glass with a cotton swab I'd brought for exactly this purpose. I felt like a spy in a bad movie. I submitted the second DNA sample with Emma's markers, requesting a paternity comparison. Then I waited and waited and waited. The results took 2 weeks because I'd requested the highest level of accuracy. 2 weeks of barely sleeping, barely eating, barely functioning. When the email finally arrived, I was at my desk at work. My hands shook as I opened the attachment. Paternity test results. Conclusion: the alleged father, Marcus Webb, is confirmed as the biological father of the tested child, Emma Webb. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. The relief was overwhelming. I literally cried at my desk, quiet tears of release. Emma was Marcus's daughter. Jennifer hadn't been lying about that. The affair with David hadn't resulted in an ongoing relationship. She'd made one terrible mistake, ended the resulting pregnancy, and committed to her marriage. I'd been paranoid, obsessive, wrong. I deleted every trace of the DNA tests, destroyed the samples, buried the evidence of my insane investigation, and I tried to move on. For the next year, I genuinely tried to let it go. Emma was Marcus's daughter. Jennifer had made a mistake but hadn't repeated it. David was dying and would take the secret of his identity to his grave. Marcus was happy, genuinely happy, with his family and his business and his life. I should be happy too. But I wasn't. Something had broken inside me during those months of suspicion and investigation. I couldn't look at Jennifer without seeing a liar. I couldn't look at Marcus without seeing a fool. I couldn't look at Emma without thinking about the baby that had been aborted, the secret that had been kept, the betrayal that had been forgiven too easily. I started pulling back from family dinners, from game nights, from the easy intimacy that had defined our relationship. I claimed I was busy with work, with dating, with my own life. Marcus noticed. "You okay, Jules? You seem distant lately." "I'm fine, just stressed." "The business is doing great. What are you stressed about?" I couldn't tell him the truth, that I was stressed because I'd violated his privacy and his daughter's privacy to feed my paranoia. That I was stressed because I couldn't forgive his wife even though he had. That I was stressed because our friendship felt like a lie built on lies, built on more lies. "Just life stuff," I said. "I'll be fine." But I wasn't fine. And then in November 2023, something happened that made my paranoia seem almost reasonable. I was at Marcus and Jennifer's house for Emma's second birthday party. It was a small affair, just family and a few close friends. Emma was adorable in her princess dress, smashing cake into her face while everyone laughed and took photos. Jennifer's phone kept buzzing throughout the party. After the fifth interruption, she excused herself to take a call, stepping out onto the back patio. I shouldn't have followed her. I had no reason to be suspicious, but old habits die hard. I positioned myself near the patio door, close enough to hear without being obvious. "Told you not to call me here," Jennifer was saying, her voice low and urgent. "I can't talk about this now." Silence, while the person on the other end spoke. "I know what I said, but the situation has changed. I need more time." More silence. "That's not fair. You can't just—" Her voice cracked. "Please, just give me until the new year. I promise I'll figure it out." She ended the call abruptly and stood there for a moment, visibly composing herself. When she turned around, I was right there. She jumped. "Julian, you scared me." "Everything okay?" "Fine. Just work stuff." "On a Saturday? During your daughter's birthday party?" "It's a client emergency, nothing I can't handle." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "We should get back before Marcus wonders where we are." I let her go ahead, my mind racing. Who had she been talking to? What situation had changed? What did she need time to figure out? Over the following weeks, I noticed Jennifer becoming increasingly stressed. She was short-tempered, distracted, jumpy whenever her phone rang. Marcus noticed too, asking her repeatedly if something was wrong. She always said everything was fine. In December, she announced she needed to take a business trip to Seattle, alone for 3 days, to meet with a potential client who preferred in-person consultations. Seattle, where David lived. David, who was dying of cancer. The old suspicions came roaring back. I told myself I was being ridiculous. David was dying. Jennifer had ended the affair years ago. There was no reason to think she'd maintained contact. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. The day Jennifer left for Seattle, I did something I knew crossed every line. I hired a private investigator. I gave him Jennifer's photo, her hotel information, and instructions to document who she met with and what she did during her trip. It cost me $3,000 I didn't really want to spend, but I had to know. The investigator's report came back 2 days later, complete with time-stamped photos. Jennifer had indeed met with a potential client, lunch at a restaurant, very professional, but she'd also visited Swedish Medical Center for 3 hours, and she'd visited an apartment in Capitol Hill. David's apartment, according to the address I cross-referenced with his LinkedIn. She'd spent 4 hours there. The photos showed her arriving looking nervous, leaving looking devastated, crying in her car for 20 minutes before driving back to her hotel. What the hell was going on? I confronted her the day she got back. I caught her at the office before Marcus arrived, printed photos in hand. "What were you doing in Seattle?" I demanded, dropping the photos on her desk. Her face went white. "You had me followed?" "Answer the question." "That's none of your business." "It is if you're lying to Marcus again. It is if you're having an affair again. It is if you're destroying my best friend's life again." "I'm not having an affair." She stood up, shaking with either rage or fear or both. "How dare you spy on me? How dare you violate my privacy like this?" "How dare I? You're the one who went to visit your former lover while he's dying." "He's dying, Julian. He's dying, and he wanted to see me before he goes, and I couldn't say no to a dying man's request." "Why? Why couldn't you say no unless there's still something between you?" "There's nothing between us." She was crying now, full body sobs. "He's dying. And he wanted to apologize in person and ask for forgiveness, and I went because despite everything, I'm not a complete monster." "What about the hospital? Why were you at the hospital?" She froze, and I knew I'd hit something. "Jennifer, why were you at the hospital?" "I can't tell you." "You don't get to play the privacy card anymore. Not after everything. Not when I'm standing here with proof that you're hiding something again." She collapsed back into her chair, looking defeated. "He's in hospice. The cancer spread to his brain. He's got maybe 3 weeks left, and he wanted to tell me something I needed to know before he died." "What?" "I can't tell you." "What?" "He has a daughter." She screamed it, then immediately covered her mouth, looking horrified at her own words. The world stopped. "What?" I whispered. "David has a daughter. From a relationship after our affair. She's 3 years old. And he's dying, and his ex won't let him see her. And he wanted me to know in case she ever comes looking for information about her father." It was a plausible explanation, too plausible. "Why would she come to you?" "Because David listed me as an emergency contact in his will, because we stayed in touch sporadically over the years, just checking in, making sure the other was okay, because despite how it ended, we were friends once, and dying people make complicated choices about who they want in their final days." "Does Marcus know you've been in touch?" "With David?" "No." "Does Marcus know you went to Seattle to see him?" "No." "Does Marcus know any of this?" "No." She was sobbing again. "No, because it would hurt him for no reason. David is dying. Whatever connection we had is over. This was just closure. Goodbye to someone who was once important to me. He was important enough that you kept in contact for 6 years. We exchanged emails a few times a year, Christmas cards, that's it. It wasn't some secret romance. It was 2 people who made a huge mistake trying to find some kind of peace with it." I wanted to believe her. Some part of me desperately wanted this to be exactly what she said it was, a dying man seeking closure, a woman trying to do the right thing. But I'd believed her before, and she'd lied. "I need you to tell Marcus," I said. "No." "Jennifer, no, I am not hurting him with this. Not when there's no reason to, not when David will be dead in a few weeks and this will all be over. It's not. It's over if you're keeping secrets." "Then let me keep this one." Her eyes pleaded with me. "Please, Julian, you've been keeping secrets too. You had me followed. You violated my privacy. You're just as guilty of deception as I am." She had me there. "If I find out you're lying to me again," I said quietly, "if there's more to this story than you're telling me, I will burn your entire life to the ground. Do you understand me?" She nodded, still crying. "And you tell Marcus about this trip. Not the details, but the fact that you visited an old friend who's dying. Give him a chance to be supportive instead of assuming he can't handle it." "Okay." "I mean it, Jennifer." "I know, I will, I promise." I left before Marcus arrived, driving home in a daze. Had I just made the right choice?
Or had I let Jennifer manipulate me again? I didn't know. I couldn't know. All I knew was that I was tired. Tired of secrets, tired of lies, tired of being the guardian of truths that weren't mine.
To guard. But most of all, I was tired of loving people who kept proving they couldn't be trusted. David died on January 7th, 2024. Jennifer told me via text. David passed this morning, peacefully with his family. I thought you'd want to know. I didn't respond. Marcus never mentioned Jennifer telling him about visiting a dying friend. Either she'd lied to me about telling him, or she'd framed it in a way that didn't raise questions. I didn't ask which. The first few months of 2024 were strange. On the surface, everything was fine. Business was booming. We'd signed our biggest client yet, a star NFL quarterback with massive endorsement potential. Marcus was thriving as a father, documenting Emma's every milestone with devoted enthusiasm. Jennifer seemed relieved, lighter, like David's death had closed a chapter she'd been trying to finish for years. And I went through the motions, playing my role, maintaining my position in their lives, but inside I was done. I was done being the keeper of secrets, done being the third wheel in a marriage built on lies, done pretending that everything was fine when it fundamentally wasn't. I started making plans, quiet plans, secret plans, plans that would take months to execute, but would ultimately free me from the web of deception I'd been caught in for 7 years. I was going to leave Webb and Cross. I'd start my own consulting firm focused on content and brand management without the sports angle. I'd poach some of our clients, the ones who worked primarily with me anyway. I'd build something separate, something mine, something not tainted by lies and betrayals. But I'd do it carefully, legally. I wouldn't burn bridges or break contracts. I'd just quietly extract myself from the partnership and start fresh. It would take time. I'd need to build up capital, establish relationships, create the infrastructure. But I could do it. I started by taking on a few side clients, people who needed brand consulting but weren't quite right for Webb and Cross. I didn't tell Marcus or Jennifer. These were small projects, nothing that competed with our main business, but they gave me runway, options, proof that I could succeed independently. By June, I had enough momentum to start planning my exit in earnest. That's when everything fell apart. It was June 18th, 2024, a Tuesday. I remember because I'd had a particularly good morning meeting with a potential client for my future independent venture. I got back to the Webb and Cross office around 2 p.m., riding high on the success of the meeting, already mentally planning how I'd structure my new company. Jennifer was waiting in my office. Her face was tear-stained, her hands shaking. "We need to talk," she said. My stomach dropped. "What happened?" "I'm pregnant." For a moment I didn't understand. "That's good. Marcus will be thrilled to have another kid." "It's not Marcus's baby." The world tilted again, still, forever. "What?"
I'm pregnant. 8 weeks. And it's not Marcus's. I couldn't breathe. How? You said the affair with David was over. You said it wasn't David. She looked at me with such raw desperation that I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. It was someone else. Someone new. Someone I met at a conference in April. You've been married for 13 years. You have a 2-year-old daughter. You nearly destroyed your marriage once already. And you cheated again? I know. Don't you think I know how insane this is? She was hyperventilating now. I don't have an excuse. I don't have a reason. I was drunk and he was charming, and I made another horrible, unforgivable decision, and now I'm pregnant and I don't know what to do. You tell Marcus, right now, today, you tell him everything. I can't. You don't have a choice. I do have a choice. She met my eyes, and what I saw there chilled me. I can have another abortion. He'll never know, just like last time. Last time, nearly.
Destroyed you. Last time you were so consumed with guilt that you were barely functional for a year. You really want to do that again? What's my alternative? Tell Marcus I cheated again and watch our marriage explode? Watch him leave me and take Emma and destroy everything we've built? You destroyed it. You did this. I know, but I also know that if I tell him, if I'm honest, it's over. He forgave me once. He won't forgive me twice, and I can't lose him. I can't lose my daughter. I can't lose everything. I stared at this woman I'd known for 16 years, this woman I'd defended and protected and trusted, and I saw a stranger. "Who are you?" I asked quietly. "I'm someone who made terrible mistakes, who keeps making terrible mistakes, who is begging you one more time to help me fix this before it destroys everyone I love. I can't do this anymore, Jennifer. I can't keep your secrets. I can't lie to Marcus. I can't watch you destroy him piece by piece and pretend
Everything is fine. Then what do you suggest? I suggest you tell him the truth, all of it. David, this new guy, the pregnancy is everything, and you let him decide what he wants to do with that information. He'll leave me. Maybe he should. She flinched like I'd slapped her. You've never liked me. Not really. You've been waiting for me to fail, waiting for a reason to turn Marcus against me. That's not true, isn't it? You've judged me since the moment you found out about David. You've never forgiven me, never given me a real second chance. You've just been waiting for me to prove you right. I've kept your secret for 7 years. I've lied to my best friend to protect you. You've held it over my head. You've used it as leverage to feel morally superior. You've made me feel like I'm constantly on probation, one mistake away from being exposed. You are one mistake away, and you keep making mistakes. We were both screaming now, years of resentment
and anger pouring out. "I need time," Jennifer said finally, her voice hoarse, "to figure out what to do, to decide whether to tell Marcus or handle this another way." "You have 1 week, then I'm telling him myself." "Julian?" "1 week, Jennifer, that's more than generous. Use it to do the right thing." I left before she could respond, got in my car, and drove aimlessly for hours. How had it come to this? How had the family I'd chosen become this toxic web of lies and betrayals? And how was I supposed to tell Marcus that his wife had cheated on him again, gotten pregnant again, and was planning another abortion without his knowledge? The answer came to me around midnight as I sat in my car overlooking the city. I wasn't going to tell him. I was going to make him see it himself. I spent the next 3 days planning. Not the careful legal extraction I'd been working on for months. Something else. Something that would force the truth into the light in a way that couldn't be denied or explained away. I started by hiring the same private investigator who'd followed Jennifer to Seattle. This time, I wanted comprehensive surveillance. Phone records, if he could get them legally, meeting logs, anything that would document Jennifer's movements and contacts. He came back with gold. Jennifer had been texting extensively with someone named A. Martinez since late April. The texts were flirtatious, then sexual, then panicked after she discovered the pregnancy. A. Martinez had been supportive at first, then distant, then basically ghosting her as the reality of the situation set in. There were also texts between Jennifer and a medical clinic, scheduling a termination procedure for June 30th. She was planning to abort this baby too, without telling Marcus, just like she'd done 7 years ago. I felt vindicated and disgusted in equal measure. The investigator also found something else, financial irregularities in Webb and Cross's accounts. Nothing. Massive, but consistent. Small transfers, a few thousand here, a few thousand there, going from the business account to a personal account in Jennifer's name. She'd been embezzling, not enough to tank the company, but enough to build herself a nest egg. Insurance, maybe, against the day Marcus might leave her. I compiled everything into a comprehensive dossier: the texts, the financial records, the appointment confirmation, the pattern of lies spanning 7 years. Then I waited. Jennifer's week deadline came and went. She didn't tell Marcus. She kept pretending everything was fine, kept making plans for Emma's upcoming 3rd birthday, kept playing the role of devoted wife and mother. On June 28th, 2 days before her scheduled abortion, I made my move. I invited Marcus to lunch, somewhere nice, somewhere public enough that he wouldn't make a scene, but private enough that we could talk. He showed up cheerful, completely unsuspecting. "This is a nice surprise. What's the occasion?" "I need to show you something." I slid the dossier across the table. He opened it, confused. Then his face went pale as he started reading. I watched him process it all: the affair, the pregnancy, the planned abortion, the embezzlement, the years of lies. His hands started shaking. "Where did you get this?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Does it matter?" "Where did you get this?" "I hired an investigator. I've been suspicious for a while, and I couldn't keep letting her lie to you." He was crying now, silent tears streaming down his face as he continued reading. "She's pregnant. Again? With someone else's baby?" "Yes. And she was going to abort it. Again. Without telling me?" "Yes." "And she's been stealing from our company?" "Yes." He closed the dossier carefully, like it might explode. "How long have you known?" "About this pregnancy? A week? About the pattern? Years." "Years." He looked up at me, betrayal written across his face.
"You've known she was lying to me for years, and you didn't tell me? You knew about the first affair. You told me you knew. I knew about David. I didn't know she'd been in contact with him for 6 years. I didn't know she'd visited him before he died. I didn't know about the embezzlement. I didn't know—" His voice broke. "I didn't know any of this." The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Marcus hadn't known the full truth. He'd known about the first affair and pregnancy, but Jennifer had minimized it, framed it as a one-time mistake with someone random. She'd lied to both of us, in different ways, keeping us both in the dark about different pieces of the truth. "I'm sorry," I said. "I thought you knew more than you did. I thought—" "You thought wrong." He stood up abruptly. "I need to go." "Marcus, don't." He left the restaurant without looking back, the dossier clutched in his hand like damning evidence, which it was. What followed
was the messiest 2 months of my life. Marcus confronted Jennifer that night. I know because she called me at 2 a.m., screaming, crying, accusing me of destroying her family. "You're a vindictive, jealous man who's been waiting for years to tear us apart," she sobbed. "You couldn't stand seeing us happy, so you sabotaged everything." "You sabotaged yourself," I said coldly. "I just made sure Marcus knew the truth. He'll never forgive you for this. Never." She was right. Marcus filed for divorce the next week. He moved out of their house and into a hotel, taking Emma with him half the time per temporary custody arrangements. He stopped speaking to me entirely, blocked my number, refused to come to the office. Jennifer, meanwhile, went to war. She hired a vicious divorce attorney who painted Marcus as a controlling, abusive husband who'd driven her to infidelity through his neglect. She claimed the embezzlement was a miscategorization of personal expenses that she'd been planning to pay it back. She had her abortion as scheduled and used it to paint herself as the victim, a woman so traumatized by her husband's discovery of her mistake that she'd felt forced to terminate a wanted pregnancy. It was a masterful performance, and it was working. Marcus's lawyer warned him that Oregon's divorce laws favored equitable distribution, that Jennifer's affair might not matter as much as he thought, that her claims of emotional abuse were being taken seriously by the court. Through all of this, I tried to reach Marcus. I sent emails explaining my reasoning, apologizing for the timing, asking for a chance to talk. He never responded. Webb and Cross was in limbo. Marcus and I were still technically partners, but we couldn't be in the same room. Jennifer still had access to the accounts, though limited. Our clients were getting nervous about the instability. I knew I needed to make a decision. In mid-August, I made it. I drafted a formal dissolution of partnership, offering to buy out Marcus's share of Webb and Cross at a fair market value, or alternatively, to sell him my share if he preferred. I sent it through his lawyer, professional and clean. He accepted my buyout offer. He wanted out of the company, away from Portland, away from everything that reminded him of Jennifer and me. The papers were signed in September. I became the sole owner of Webb and Cross Consulting, with all the debt and all the potential that entailed. Marcus moved to Denver, ironically, where my parents had moved all those years ago. He took a job with a major sports agency, the kind of position he'd dreamed about in college. And Jennifer stayed in Portland, fighting for custody of Emma, trying to rebuild a life from the wreckage of her choices. I should have felt victorious. I'd exposed the lies, freed Marcus from a toxic marriage, claimed the business we'd built. But I just felt empty. I'd destroyed the closest thing I'd ever had to a family. I'd betrayed my best friend because that's what it was, regardless of my justifications. I'd turned into the kind of person who hired private investigators and compiled dossiers and weaponized secrets. I'd become what I hated most. 3 months passed. December 2024 arrived with the kind of cold, grey Portland rain that seeps into your bones. Webb and Cross was thriving under my sole leadership. I'd rebranded slightly, refocused our efforts, and we were more profitable than ever. Success, it turned out, was the best revenge, but I was miserable. I'd cut off all contact with Marcus and Jennifer. I'd isolated myself from the few mutual friends we'd had, unable to explain the situation without exposing painful truths. I worked constantly, using exhaustion as an excuse to avoid thinking about what I'd lost. Then on December 15th, my phone rang. Marcus? I stared at his name on the screen for 3 rings before answering. Hello? Julian. His voice was different, harder, colder, but also more controlled. We need to talk. I've been trying to talk to you for months. I wasn't ready. Now I am. Can you meet me? Tomorrow, 2 p.m. at Powell's Books, in the rare book room on the 3rd floor. It was a strange location, but I agreed immediately. I spent the next 24 hours anxious, hopeful, terrified. What did he want to say? Was this reconciliation, closure, one final condemnation? I arrived 15 minutes early and waited in the rare book room, surrounded by leather-bound volumes and the smell of old paper. Marcus showed up exactly on time. He looked good, leaner, more serious, like he'd grown up considerably in 3 months. Thank you for coming, he said formally. Of course. We stood there awkwardly, 2 men who'd shared everything for 20 years, suddenly strangers. I've been in therapy, Marcus said finally. A lot of therapy, trying to process everything that happened. That's good, I'm glad. My
therapist helped me understand some things about my marriage, about Jennifer, about you. Okay. She helped me see that I've spent my whole life avoiding difficult truths, choosing comfort over honesty, forgiving too easily because confrontation is hard. And that pattern, it enabled Jennifer's behavior. It enabled your deception. It enabled this whole mess. Marcus, I never meant. Let me finish. His voice was sharp. You knew about Jennifer's affairs, her lies, her embezzlement. You knew for years, and you kept it from me because you thought you were protecting me, but you weren't protecting me. You were protecting yourself. You were protecting the family structure you'd built your life around. You chose your comfort over my right to make informed decisions about my own life. Every word was a dagger. You're right. I know I'm right. And that's what I've been working through in therapy. Understanding that everyone in this situation was serving their own interests.
Jennifer served her desire to maintain her marriage. You served your desire to maintain our friendship. And I served my desire to avoid painful truths. Where does that leave us? It leaves us here, in this room, having this conversation. He pulled out a document from his bag. I wanted to give you this in person. I took the document. It was a legal notice informing me that Marcus was challenging the buyout agreement we'd signed. My blood went cold. What is this? I've been reviewing the financials more carefully. Jennifer's embezzlement was more extensive than your dossier showed. She'd been stealing from the company for 4 years, not one, and some of that money, it was taken during times when you were signing off on the accounts. I didn't know, maybe you didn't, or maybe you saw the irregularities and ignored them because admitting Jennifer was stealing meant admitting she wasn't the person you wanted her to be. Either way, you had a fiduciary responsibility to investigate and you didn't. Marcus, please! I'm not trying to destroy you. I'm trying to get what's fair. Jennifer's embezzlement devalued the company when I sold you my shares. I should have received more money. So I'm asking for a recalculation of the buyout based on what the company would have been worth without the theft. It was a reasonable request, a fair request, and it would cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars I didn't have liquid. I need time to get that kind of money. You have 6 months. After that, we go to court. Why are you doing this? Is it really about the money? No. He met my eyes, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Pity. It's about forcing you to face consequences. You've spent your whole life following me, supporting me, enabling me. You've never had to stand on your own, make your own choices, face your own failures. So I'm giving you that opportunity. 6 months to figure out who you are without me, without our partnership, without the safety net of our friendship. I don't understand. I know you don't, but you will. He turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I don't hate you. I'm grateful, actually. You freed me from a marriage that was slowly killing me. You forced me to face truths I'd been avoiding. You gave me a chance to rebuild my life with honesty as the foundation, so thank you. And goodbye, Julian. He left before I could respond. I stood there in the rare book room, surrounded by the preserved wisdom of centuries, holding a legal document that represented the end of everything I'd known. And I realized Marcus was right. I'd spent 23 years defining myself through him. Following his lead, supporting his dreams, orbiting his life like a moon with no light of its own. I'd destroyed that orbit to save him. But I hadn't figured out what to do without it. The next 6 months were the hardest of my life. I took out loans to pay Marcus the recalculated buyout. It nearly bankrupted me, but I did it. He deserved that money, and more importantly, I deserved the consequences of my choices. I sold my condo and moved into a modest apartment. I cut my salary and worked harder than I ever had, rebuilding Webb and Cross into something that could sustain the debt I'd incurred. And I went to therapy. My therapist, Dr. Sarah Chen, was patient but firm. She helped me see patterns I'd been blind to my entire life. I'd attached myself to Marcus because I was terrified of abandonment. I'd enabled Jennifer's lies because exposing them meant losing my family. I'd destroyed that family because maintaining it meant betraying my values. And now I was adrift because I'd never learned to be my own person. You need to figure out who Julian is, Dr. Chen said during one session. Not Julian Marcus's friend, not Julian the business partner, just Julian. I don't know who that is. Then it's time to find out. It was slow, painful work. I had to confront hard truths about my childhood, my parents' emotional absence, my desperate need for belonging. I had to acknowledge that my loyalty to Marcus had become obsessive, that my judgment of Jennifer had been partly justified and partly projection of my own failures. I had to learn to sit with loneliness instead of running from it. By March 2025, I'd made progress. I'd started dating, not just using people as distractions. I'd reconnected with some old college friends who'd fallen away during my years of Marcus-focused existence. I'd even started writing again, returning to the dream I'd abandoned when we started Web and Cross. The business was stable, not thriving, but stable. I'd restructured our client list, hired some solid staff, built something I could be proud of, and I'd stopped hating Jennifer. I didn't forgive her. I didn't excuse her, but I understood her. She'd been trapped in a marriage to a man who loved her but didn't really see her, who forgave too easily and demanded too little. She'd made terrible choices, but she'd also been responding to real loneliness, real disconnection. We were all just broken people trying to survive our own damage. In April 2025, I got an unexpected email from Emma, except Emma was 3 years old and couldn't email, so it was from Jennifer using Emma's email account that she'd set up for future use. Julian, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, I wouldn't blame you, but I wanted you to know that Emma asks about Uncle Julian sometimes. She doesn't understand why you're not around anymore, and I don't know how to explain it to her. I'm not asking for a relationship. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just letting you know that you mattered to her. You matter to her. And if you ever want to be in her life again, I wouldn't object. The divorce is final. Marcus has primary custody, which is fair. I get her every other weekend and some holidays. I'm in therapy. I'm trying to be better. I'm sorry for everything. I know that doesn't fix anything, but it's true. Jennifer. I stared at the email for a long time. Emma. Sweet, innocent Emma, who'd done nothing wrong and had lost her Uncle Julian because of adult failures and complications. I wrote back, Jennifer. Thank you for reaching out. I'd like to see Emma if that's okay with you and Marcus. I miss her too. I hope therapy is helping. It's helped me. Julian. 2 weeks later, I had coffee with Jennifer at a neutral location. It was awkward, painful, honest. She apologized, I apologized, we agreed to disagree about who was most at fault, most damaged, most wrong. And we agreed that Emma deserved better than our collective failures. I started seeing Emma once a month, supervised visits at first, then more casual hangouts. She'd gotten so big, so articulate, so full of personality. She told me stories about her daddy's new apartment in Denver, about her mommy's new job at a different accounting firm, about her stuffed elephant, who was apparently very naughty. She didn't understand the adult complications that had separated us. She just knew her Uncle Julian was back. It was healing in its way. In June 2025, Marcus reached out. Not for reconciliation, not for friendship, just acknowledgement. Jules. Jennifer told me you're seeing Emma again. I'm glad. She needs good people in her life. I'm doing well in Denver. The job is challenging but good. I'm dating someone, another single parent, which helps us understand each other's complications. I don't think we'll ever be what we were. Too much damage, too many lies, too much history. But I wanted you to know I don't hate you. I understand why you did what you did, even if I don't agree with how you did it. Take care of yourself. Marcus, I wrote back. Marcus, I'm glad you're doing well. You deserve happiness. I'm sorry for all of it. The lies, the deception, the way I handled everything. You were right about me needing to figure out who I am without you. I'm working on it. I hope Denver is everything you wanted it to be. Jules. It wasn't closure exactly, but it was something. Which brings me to now, January 2026. I'm sitting in my apartment looking out at the Portland skyline, thinking about the last decade of my life. I built a family out of nothing and then destroyed it trying to save it. I betrayed my best friend while trying to protect him. I became the thing I hated most while believing I was doing the right thing. And I've spent the last year trying to rebuild myself from the wreckage. Webb & Cross is now just Cross Consulting. I removed Marcus's name from the company after he explicitly gave me permission, wanting a clean break from our shared history. The business is growing again, slowly but steadily. I have a life that's mine. Friends who know me as Julian, not Marcus's best friend. A therapist who keeps me honest. A routine that grounds me. And I have Emma, once a month, reminding me that some connections survive even the worst betrayals. I think about Marcus sometimes, about the 6th grader who befriended the new kid, who gave me a family when I had none, who was my brother for 20 years. I miss him. I'll probably always miss him, but I also know that our friendship was built on an unhealthy foundation, my need for belonging, his need for uncritical support, our mutual inability to face difficult truths. We loved each other, we hurt each other, we saved each other, we destroyed each other. That's the complicated truth of human relationships. They're never simple, they're never just good or bad. They're messy and contradictory, and painful and beautiful, all at once. I don't know if Marcus and I will ever have a real conversation again. Maybe in 10 years, 20 years, when enough time has passed and enough healing has happened. Maybe at Emma's wedding, decades from now, when we're both old men, looking back on the choices we made when we were young and stupid. Or maybe never. Maybe some things are meant to stay broken. Either way, I'm learning to be okay with uncertainty, to sit with unanswered questions, to accept that not every story has a satisfying resolution. I did what I thought was right. I also did tremendous damage. Both things are true. And I have to live with that. The revenge I wanted wasn't against Jennifer. Not really. It was against the lies, the deception, the erosion of trust that had been happening for years. I wanted truth. Even if truth destroyed everything, I got my wish. And now I'm building something new from the ruins, something honest, something mine. It's lonely sometimes. It's hard, but it's real. And real, I'm learning, is worth more than comfortable lies. I still remember that first day in 6th grade when Marcus grabbed the desk next to mine and changed my life forever. The crooked smile, the wild gestures, the instant connection, I wouldn't trade those 20 years for anything. The good and the bad, the joy and the pain, all of it shaped me into who I am now. But I also wouldn't go back. Because the Julian who exists today, scarred, wiser, more careful with his trust, but also more honest with himself, is someone I'm starting to actually like. And that's something Marcus's friendship never taught me. How to be enough on my own. I raise my glass of whiskey to the Portland skyline, to the memories of what was, to the uncertainty of what will be. To truth, I say to no one, and to the courage to face it. The city lights flicker like distant stars, indifferent to human drama, constant in their beauty. And I drink, and I breathe, and I let myself hope that someday, somehow, all of this will make